A CTV News Special, Cold Case, a look at a series of unsolved crimes across Southern Ontario. Here now are CTV's Brent Hanson and Art Baumunk.
Good evening. Tonight is Cold Case Night, and we're dedicating the next half hour to a special series of reports put together by our crime and legal affairs reporter, Art Baumunk. Art, we're looking at 7 cases tonight, all of which remain unsolved.
That's right, Brent, and the first deals with the murder of 24-year-old Felix Barufe. Barufe's brutally beaten body was found in a farmhouse he rented in Fordwich, northwest of Waterloo. It was a 911 call on February 6, 2003 that brought police to the farmhouse. Inside, they found evidence of a violent crime and discovered the body of Felix Barufe. Barufe was single, 6'3", described as a gentle giant who liked golf, socializing with friends, and spending time alone. But his passion was racing cars. For the first time, his mother talks publicly about her son's death. She asked that we not use her last name to protect her privacy.
Well, it's true. He did have a lot of friends, and he enjoyed cars. It was his hobby, and he was a student. He was learning auto mechanics.
A young life cut short, and police believe that Barufe was murdered sometime between February 1st and February 3rd.
The facts are, right as it stands, this is a robbery. There's no question that there's items stolen from the house. I mean, we have 2 articles, a ghetto blaster and a stereo component obviously missing from the home. We had his wallet discarded 6 kilometers northwest of his residence.
Also taken a kitty litter box full of $3,000 worth of loonies and toonies. But it's this Pioneer compact disc recorder that generates a lot of investigative interest. It's a rare model that can record CDs from old vinyl albums. It would stand out if anyone saw it in a house or in a pawn shop. The serial number is UINN 000156CC.
And we certainly are interested in any information that anybody who has acquired a piece of equipment like this would have for us.
It's been almost 3 years since the murder of Felix Barufe, a case gone cold, but no one giving up in the search to find the killer or killers. A number of polygraphs have been done, over 500 interviews conducted, some suspects cleared, others still of interest. Keeping the case files close at hand, reviewing the evidence, believing someone knows who committed the crime, hoping for a new lead. And through it all, it's what the victim's mother prays for. And she makes this plea.
So please, if you have any information, regardless of what it may be on this or any other crime, please don't hesitate to come forward. You'll never know what a difference you might have made unless you do.
A difference that could lead to the person or persons who murdered Felix Barufe.
It's a very tragic end for such a young man. And Dart, as you know, these cold case reports are very popular with our viewers. You've been doing them for quite a while now. What are some of the important elements you're trying to capture?
Well, Brent, first you try to get the facts straight. And one of the most important things to me is to deal with these cases with some sensitivity, especially when you're speaking with the family and friends of victims who still hope that these cases will be solved.
And the wait for families can go on a long time. Our next case dates back 22 years when the body of a young woman was found in a marsh in Waterloo.
17-year-old Kim Fraser, a petite 17-year-old, 4'6", weighing just 85 pounds. She was described as friendly, outgoing, and full of life. On June 22, 1984, 2 16-year-old boys found Kim Fraser's partially decomposed body in the Laurel Creek Reservoir, just off Beaver Creek Road. A body placed in some reeds, rocks used to try to cover her remains. This woman remembers the day she learned that the victim was her sister.
When the jewelry was put on TV, and my mother recognized it, and then they identified the remains as my sister.
Kim Fraser was 17 when she left home and had only been out on her own for a short time before she was last seen in downtown Kitchener 2 weeks before her body was discovered.
And was in the process of moving in with a boyfriend at the time, around the time she was last seen.
She was known as a friendly person who'd easily befriend people, and had many associates downtown Kitchener.
A lot of things go through your mind.
Ellen says she wanted her sister to stay home and finish high school. She didn't know her sister's friends and wonders about that now.
Maybe she hung around with the bad crowd, I don't know. I say I didn't associate with her friends.
Friends and many others interviewed by police.
There's approximately 600 or so people who were mentioned during the course of the investigation over the years since this happened. Kim Fraser's demise remains undetermined, and we're in the process now of going through the files.
Reviewing the case file, revisiting the scene.
Sergeant, we're back where Kimberly Fraser's body was found some 21 years ago, and this is pretty much where they found the body?
It is, in the area of the shorter reeds here is where the body would have been deposited.
21 years gone by and several theories. Murder suspected, but not ruling out that Kim Fraser may have died accidentally, and people panicked.
It's the dream of any homicide investigator to have a look at a cold case, as we call them, and get a chance to delve into the old investigation and to actually solve it, so to bring some closure for the remaining family.
I think somebody must know something. It didn't happen on its own. Well, I hope it's resolved before my mother passes away. She's getting older, so she can rest in peace. And so my sister can rest in peace too.
A sister and a young woman still in the minds of many. Her death still a mystery, but believing someone has the keys to unlock it.
And just ahead, a stabbing death in Cambridge and a mother waiting for justice.
Cold Case, a CTV News special, will continue. Back now to Cold Case. Here again are CTV's Brent Hanson and Art Baumunk.
Welcome back. Art, the next case also dates back a number of years. A question for you. How often do these cold cases get worked on?
Well, Brent, while the case may be cold, the files are never far away. Detectives are often assigned these files to review them, so they get a fresh look from another set of eyes to see if anything was missed or should be followed up again.
And that's the situation with our next cold case. It was 16 years ago. A man was found stabbed to death in his Cambridge apartment, and his mother clings to the hope police will catch the killers of her son.
The next graduation.
Marilla Wagner looking through an album that holds pictures of her son Robert and Mother's Day cards, along with clippings documenting something more sinister, the brutal crime that took Robert from her life.
I don't know. I just keep praying that there's somebody out there that will come forward.
Robert Wagner lived alone in a third-floor apartment in this building on Woodside Avenue. He was last seen leaving the building on a Saturday afternoon, January 19th, 1991. 3 days later, a concerned friend went to Wagner's apartment and made a grisly discovery.
He was found in his apartment, stabbed to death, multiple stab wounds.
Detectives say there were no signs of forced entry, leading them to believe the killer was someone Wagner knew or was familiar with. In time, a $10,000 reward was offered for anyone with information to help solve the crime, a crime that police say could have a drug connection.
We suspect that there is possibly a drug-related cause, although we don't know what the motive is specifically, but we suspect drugs. He used drugs and had I suppose sold a small amount of drugs. I wouldn't call him any big-time drug dealer, but certainly sold a small quantity.
A brutal crime, perhaps with a drug connection, a cold case file containing a lot of information, but still missing the key ingredient, the identity of the killer, yet knowing that someone out there has the answer.
Oh, absolutely. Whether it be suspect or suspects, or their loved ones, somebody who they confided in has the information or has information that would at least lead us in the right direction to finding those people responsible.
You just can't rest not knowing. I would hate to go to my grave not knowing what happened to him. I really would. It just, I don't know, maybe it's the only thing that's keeping me going, that something will show up. Somebody will come forward. That's the only thing I'm praying for.
A mother praying police will get the call that will lead them to the person or persons who murdered her son.
Mom hoping to have some closure. And Art, another sad story as the family hopes for some closure as well. And the next report also gets back to what you were saying about sensitivity. It involves the death of a newborn baby in Brantford.
Well, Brent, it's the case of a baby boy found dead near a city park. It was a disturbing discovery that deeply affected the community and still does to this day.
A tiny rose-covered casket and a memorial service for baby Parker.
I was asked to preside over this celebration of the life. I felt something tighten in my heart. I am a father of 2 children.
An outpouring of emotion from a community grieving a grim discovery. Last July, a woman was walking her dog near Lansdowne Park. She finds the body of a newborn baby found with his blanket. His identity still unknown. Police collect DNA from the child and canvass the neighborhood, asking people, especially young females, to voluntarily give samples for comparison.
And we're still waiting for those to come back to us to attempt to eliminate a number of people from that investigation, just under 100 people that fit into an age criteria for our investigation, that we're eager to get back those results.
Police tell us through their investigations and tips from the public, there are about 39 people of interest in the group who've given their DNA.
When we went through those people as well, there's a couple people that really did stand out and very eager to hear what their test results will be from the consent DNA samples that were provided.
A memorial still stands here in Lansdowne Park, not far from where the discovery was made. And even in the snow, people come here to remember baby Parker. People emotionally affected by what happened so close to home.
Everybody here is really touched because it was a child, and everybody around. This is a family neighborhood here, so it does touch everybody.
Touched, but also curious to learn the truth of what happened. For investigative reasons, police aren't releasing the cause of death, and it adds to the mystery in a case that's certainly tragic. But is it more than that? Detectives hoping for a DNA hit to get the answers and to learn the identity of baby Parker.
A lot of times you're working for the victim in these cases, and the victims in this case, the victim is an unnamed person. As we got further into the investigation, it became obvious that something wasn't right about this, and it was the investigators that dubbed the name.
A newborn given the name baby Parker, who's still in the hearts and minds of many.
Still ahead, the important role that DNA can play in solving cold cases and unsolved death of a man at a club in Cambridge.
Cold Case, a CTV News special, will continue. Back now to Cold Case. Here again are CTV's Brent Hanson and Art Baumunk.
It is clear in all the cases, forensic evidence and DNA are crucial, and properly preserved can be a key to solving these cold cases.
That's exactly right, Brent. DNA technology has grown by leaps and bounds, and that, along with some good old-fashioned police work, is what can ultimately solve these cases.
This next case deals with a crime at a club just outside of Cambridge. A young man shot, his killer still at large. And for the first time, we hear from the victim's girlfriend, the mother of his child.
Kelly Griffin sits with her 10-year-old son, Wayne, who's named after his father. Kelly was 2 months pregnant when she learned that a killer had taken Orville Wayne Mohan from them.
Whoever did this needs to face the consequences now. They've gotten to live free for 10 years. It's about time that ends now.
24-year-old Orville Wayne Mohan bled to death. He was shot once with a semi-automatic pistol. A shell recovered at the scene. The crime committed on the night of June 22nd, 1996, at the Oriental Sports Club, just southeast of the city.
When police arrived, there were still several, they estimated between 100 and 150 people in the area, and the people were in a panic state for the most part. It was a crowd that was very upset about what had happened. A young man, 24 years old, had been shot in the left upper thigh and was suffering from severe blood loss. So there would have been people in the outdoor area of the soccer field surrounding the banquet hall.
Panic and the first priority, the victim. But police also had to protect and control the crowd and keep people from leaving so they could be questioned about what they witnessed. Did anyone see who pulled the trigger?
Since the shooting here almost 10 years ago, police have interviewed hundreds of people, showing photo lineups of suspects to many of them.
It's an unfortunate situation. I believe that there were several people who were trying to assist the police in solving this case. Unfortunately, the investigators believed, and I think it was the case, that the shooter was unknown to those people who were attempting to help the police, and therefore they failed in their attempts to identify the suspects in photo lineups.
Photos of the crime scene. Suspects narrowed, we're told, to a small group from out of town, from the Toronto area.
There's a lot of evidence that was obtained in this case, and we are very hopeful that someone does come forward with some new information that can assist us.
And Wayne Mohan's family isn't giving up hope that with more information, an arrest will be made.
Nothing would give me more pleasure than seeing that done, because, I mean, this person is out there. You don't know how many more people he has killed. I mean, this gun violence has to stop somewhere. The sooner he is off the street, the better we all will feel.
Photos of Wayne Mohan with his sister in Jamaica. Many members of his family and friends still live there. It's where he's buried, remembered as a young man who would do anything for anyone and not think twice about it.
We just want everybody to realize that he's not forgotten. We want him to, justice here. It's not fair. He was a good man, and his son needs to have some closure.
A son who carries the name of a father he never got to know.
Well, from a killing in Cambridge to disturbing crimes in Guelph in 1999, two sexual predators were stalking the streets. Art, bring us up to date.
Well, Brent, one of them was caught and is now behind bars. The other is still out there, wanted for attacks on two women. One of the victims in her 70s.
Crime scene photos taken on July 24th, 1999, after a 74-year-old woman is attacked in her apartment in a senior center. She's awakened by a man with a husky voice,
who gave her directions that she had to do what she was told. She was sexually assaulted, and at the conclusion, she was actually bound by cords that were found in the apartment.
Police thought the attack could be connected to one a month earlier and others that followed. A special task force was formed. DNA led detectives to this man, Peter Schwenker. Schwenker was convicted and sentenced as a dangerous offender for a series of sexual assaults in Guelph and Kitchener. But it wasn't Schwenker who attacked the 74-year-old woman. It was clear there were two serial rapists active in the city at the same time.
4 months after the crime committed at the nursing home, the suspect struck again, about a mile away. This time, the victim was much younger.
On November 14th, the predator enters through a garage window, then through an unlocked door into the house. He takes a white sweater from a rec room wardrobe. He attacks a 45-year-old woman.
Sometime around 4 o'clock, she was awakened by someone sitting on her bed. A male had placed his hand over her face, made demands of her, and threatened to kill her if she didn't comply.
The man was armed with a knife. This knife.
As she was laying there, her initial reaction was to reach up with her left hand, and she grabbed the knife from the suspect, and at the same time reached up and grabbed at his face. Now, we learned that he had a woman's sweater covering his face, and as she grabbed it, she pulled it and, we believe, scratched the bridge of his nose and perhaps under his eye.
The attacker leaves. DNA is recovered from under the victim's fingernails and the sweater, matched to evidence recovered at the first crime scene. But why did he attack a younger woman? His first victim was 74. Detectives raise a possible theory.
If you go down the hallway, our victim's bedroom is on the left-hand side, and immediately on the right-hand side is the bedroom of her mother, and she's 70 years old, and could very well have been the intended target of the attack.
I think about this case all the time, both of these cases, and still to this day. It was a devastating effect for our community. The fact that there isn't closure for the victims for them is personally very devastating. And for us as an investigator, we certainly would like to have this person caught and brought to justice.
Justice for the victims in a case gone cold, but the file's still open until a sexual predator is caught.
Coming up after the break, a cold-blooded killing in Guelph. A man stabbed on a busy street. Detectives still looking for the attacker.
Cold Case, a CTV News special, will continue. Back now to Cold Case. Here again are CTV's Brent Hanson and Art Baumunk.
Art, our final case tonight takes us back to Guelph, this time for an unsolved murder.
Well, Brent, it was a cold-blooded killing just last summer when a city man was stabbed to death on a city street.
A blood trail on Elizabeth Street. Forensic officers collecting evidence on the morning of August 25th, 2005. Police talking to people in the neighborhood to find out if anyone heard or saw anything. And there would have been calls for help from the victim, 40-year-old Gus Fourounes, because after he was stabbed, Fourounes stumbled down the street, collapsing on a doorstep. And not too far away, police guard another house. A woman who lives nearby heard noises coming from it shortly after the victim was discovered. We're protecting her identity.
And by the time I was out in the back porch with the windows open, I heard somebody banging on the door, the wooden door, saying, "Let me in, let me in." He said a name. I can't remember the exact name. It was a female name.
Was this the killer seeking a place to hide, or maybe someone who witnessed the crime?
At this time, police aren't making any comment on the current state of their investigation, but they do say that a team of detectives continues to actively work the case.
And from the beginning, police told us the murder had drug connections.
Investigators have made a link to the drug trade here in Guelph. Whether that's a direct cause or reason behind the murder of Mr. Fourounes, they are not releasing at this point.
And people on Elizabeth Street have no doubt that drugs are at the root of the crime.
Crackheads have been moving in, They've been taking over everywhere, so wouldn't doubt something like this was eventually going to happen.
Since the murder, people tell us that the drug problem in the neighborhood seems to have eased, but they're still concerned about the killing and who committed the crime.
We haven't heard anything about, like, a suspect or anything. It is kind of weird to know that, they could still be wandering around here.
People who want the killer or killers caught for their peace of mind and for the family of the victim.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I imagine they would like to know what happened, and so would everybody in the neighborhood, I'm sure of that.
Myself and everybody else in the neighborhood. Really, in fact, the city of Guelph would like to know, but it's got to come to justice sooner or later.
Wanting justice after a bloody crime on Elizabeth Street.
Well, Art, thank you very much for this tonight. And we look forward to more from the cold case files in the fall. Any final words?
Brent, just to the viewers, that police and the families of the victims ask anyone with information on these cases to call them or Crime Stoppers.
Once again, Art, thank you very much. And thank you for joining us this evening. Good night.